First of all, I'm not sure you can turn the situation around. We are where we are. Obviously, I have been fairly public for a number of years in the previous administration, really back in the Obama administration, certainly during the Trump administration and in the current administration, proposing alternatives that allow you to manage a war that you cannot win. And the reason you can't win in Afghanistan, and the reason Afghanistan is so much more difficult, for example, than say Iraq, is that the enemy is beyond your grasp. Their headquarters, their major bases are on Pakistani soil. This is something that we raised with the Pakistanis on innumerable occasions. When I was the commander in Afghanistan, the commander of US Central Command, the CIA director, even more recently when I met with their intelligence chief when he was in Washington, they just either lack the capacity or the capability or the will or all of the above to eliminate the Taliban and also the Haqqani Taliban, the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, Al-Qaeda elements, and now the Islamic State from their soil. So what you can do, however, is have what I have termed a sustained commitment, sustainability being measured in the expenditure of blood and treasure. And I thought where we were prior to the withdrawal was actually not an entirely bad situation. Maybe you'd like to have a few more troops, you'd like to have a lot more drones and close air support and intelligence fusion, but by and large, we could support the Afghan forces who are very much fighting and dying for their country. Let's keep in mind that 27 times our losses are what the Afghans have sustained. Over 66,000 Afghan security force members lost their lives fighting for their country. But once they realized that US air power was gone, US contractors to maintain their air force were gone, and their own air force no longer could come to the rescue with reinforcements, emergency resupply, aero medevac, and also close air support, they fought for a few days and then recognized that, again, the alternatives are pretty bleak, and they did what Afghans have always done throughout their, which is survive and be, in a sense, what some have pejoratively termed professional chameleons. I think is a bit unfair, but that's a little bit. They're very quick to detect shifts in the direction that the wind is blowing, and they cut deals. We are where we are now. That's, again, past. That can be relitigated by historians, but the situation in which we now find ourselves is one in which I would basically be doing what I think the administration is doing. And by the way, I should just point out very briefly, I am not a member of either political party. I don't register, I don't vote, I don't support candidates, endorse them or contribute to them. I will advise candidates of either party who seek my thoughts or what have you. In this case, I think going forward, the administration recognizes that we have an enormous opportunity to exploit the Taliban's huge impending need for financial assistance. They are in very dire straits. The Afghan reserves around the world are largely frozen. Their IMF special drawing rights have been suspended. That was $450 million alone. The salaries are coming due. In many cases, these were funded by the US, Japan, the UK, or others. I think we funded all of the 300,000 Afghan security force members' salaries, operating costs, maintenance, and logistics. And the economy is imploding. Obviously, no one is seeking to invest there right now. Those that were there tried to get their money out. Their best and brightest have left. So they're in a very, very tough situation. Basic services have already begun deteriorating due to the departure of many of the international organizations and embassies that used to underwrite them. And the ability to generate revenue is going to be significantly reduced given the lack of, again, outside investment and economic activity. In a good year, when I was the commander there, we estimated that Afghanistan could generate maybe $1 to $2 billion worth of revenue. By the way, that's in contrast to Iraq, which could generate in a great year when their oil prices were $105 per barrel, nearly $100 billion. So again, the differences between Iraq and Afghanistan are very stark, as I laid out for Secretary Rumsfeld one time when he asked me to do an assessment in Afghanistan on my way home from my 3-star tour in Iraq. They're in a bind. And we should use the leverage we have and the resources that we and our allies are withholding to force them to do what we would like to see them do, which is to not exercise the kind of capricious summary justice that they used to administer, to keep al-Qaeda from establishing a sanctuary on their soil, to treat women at least decently. We don't yet know what it means when they say that as long as women adhere to Sharia law practices, that they will be treated fairly. Again, how does that operationalize itself? All the rest of this. But again, we have considerable leverage. We know we have that. The government, I know that individuals are keenly aware of it, and will use that leverage to continue also, I hope, to facilitate the evacuation of any remaining American citizens. We've done a pretty good job getting them out, although obviously a pretty chaotic beginning and tragically now ending to that mission. Same for green card holders, to a degree, special immigrant visa applicants. These are the Afghans who served 2 years on the ground as battlefield interpreters alongside our men and women in uniform, shared risk and hardship and all the rest of that, and more than have earned that opportunity. And then others whose lives are in jeopardy because of their work with us or with our implementing partners. So that's going forward. And there are no happy endings here. There never were any happy endings. They were all suboptimal. But this is about as suboptimal as it gets, having gone from a government, however imperfect, however flawed, however frustrating, maddening, and so forth. At least it welcomed us on their soil. We had spectacular bases in Afghanistan that we could use to ensure that al-Qaeda could not reestablish the kind of sanctuary it had when it planned the 9/11 attacks on its soil during Taliban control. It also, frankly, to periodically conduct operations in the so-called regional counterterrorism campaign, the most prominent of which, needless to say, was the operation launched from Afghan soil to Abbottabad, Pakistan, to bring Osama bin Laden to justice and terminated back in Afghanistan. That was in the final couple of months that I was the commander there. So that's the situation. It is a very disheartening one, frankly, for those of us who were engaged in this pretty heavily over the years and know the sacrifice and hardship and hard-fought achievements. It's beyond that. It's much, much more than just, again, the security aspects. It's all that Afghans were able to enjoy for 20 years when they had reasonable freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Women could participate in the economy, could go to school and college. My wife and I fund a scholarship for a woman at the American University of Afghanistan every year. That beautiful campus is now the headquarters of the murderous Haqqani Taliban, an element of the Taliban that was particularly active over the years in blowing up innocent civilians in Kabul and the provinces leading to them from the tribal areas of Western Pakistan. That woman, thankfully, is in Doha, Qatar now. She is doing her homework. I had a picture of her just before joining this session, but again, obviously not the optimum situation going forward. But we are where we are. And as I laid out, I think we have considerable leverage together with our allies and partners. And we should use that. And I'm quite confident, again, the administration will use that.